So let's have a look at Jonah chapter 2, thinking about a person crying out to God. First thing, what does it say? Read Jonah chapter 2. Take your time to understand the words and what it's saying. Jonah chapter 2 is a prayer written basically inside the fish, obviously written down afterwards, but this is Jonah's experience of what it is like to be inside the fish and to be rescued from that situation. Having thought about what it says, what does it mean? What are we seeing and learning here as we look at Jonah chapter 2? Well, two things. Think about a prayer from a place of darkness and despair. Crying out to God from a place of desperation. Maybe a very personal experience for you where you are at the minute. Maybe something you've experienced in the past helps you understand this. Look at his sense of helplessness, his despair, his fear of imminent death. The idea of being caught up in the seaweed and drowning. Try and experience those emotions and think them through. Or what about the second thing? The whole idea of being rescued and saved, and that experience. Think of what Jonah has been through, the decision to flee, the storm, being chucked into the water, then being in the fish in the darkness, and that for 3 days of utter despair. And then the vomiting up onto the beach. I wonder, have you always imagined a nice sandy beach, or is it maybe something a bit more like this? Lying in a pool of fish vomit. Of course, after all that, he still is Jonah, with the same calling, the same life to face. Jonah has been saved and being rescued. An incredible thing is taking place, but it's not straightforward, it's not always comfortable, it's a very demanding experience to be saved sometimes. Salvation comes from the Lord, verse 9. An incredible phrase, salvation comes from the Lord. Jonah is turning back to God. He still has to now face this call to obey God and be faithful to Him, to serve Him, and all that that's going to entail. But here you have Jonah making vows again to God. So think about some of those things. Understanding, what does this mean? And then the final step is, so what? So what? The application that is often the hardest step, the applying it into your life and my life, very personal thing. If you have a train of thought that flares up in your mind, something that God would drop into your spirit, follow it through, think about it some more. Or here are some other ideas that you may want to ponder. Do you need to pour out your heart to God, just like Jonah did? To sit down and just tell Him all that you feel. Maybe you need to recount and delight for a moment or two in your salvation story, how God has saved you and rescued you. Maybe to write that down or share that with someone. Or maybe you need to think a bit about where your sin and rebellion against God has left you and where are some of the things you need to now take up and face and deal with. Now that you have experienced salvation, where do you go from here? So what is God saying to you? What truth or insight do you need to act upon?